Hello Year 7, this is lesson 6 of the speed and forces topic. Today's title is friction. Please make sure that you have today's title and today's date at the top of your page. What is friction? If you rub your hands together, they get warm and there is resistance to your rubbing motion. This resistive force is called friction. Give it a go. What causes friction? Your hands might look smooth, but on a microscopic level they have rough surfaces. You can see this easily on your fingers. So when you rub your hands together, you feel this resistive force of friction. Friction always tries to slow moving objects down. We say it opposes motion, so it's opposite to the motion. Friction is created whenever two touching objects or surfaces move past each other. Friction also occurs when things move through air. This is called drag. You may have heard of it as air resistance. There is a maximum value for the frictional force, which depends on the force pushing the two surfaces together and the state of the surfaces in contact. If both of your surfaces are very smooth, your maximum value of friction will be much lower than if they are very rough. So think about this bike. What are the sources of friction? There are lots on a bike, so see if you can spot as many as you can. Pause the video and think about where there is friction. Let's have a look. So where you have friction between the brake pad and the rim of the wheel to slow it down. We'll have friction in the wheel bearing. There'll be friction in the links of the chain as that moves. There'll be friction between the tyres and the road or the path. There'll be friction in the other wheel bearing. There's also friction in the pedal bearing. So a bearing is just a kind of like a round tube where something is turning around it. So think of it a bit like a hinge. You've got that turning, so your wheel will be going round and it's got the rod through the middle and there could be friction between those two surfaces. And there's one more, which is potentially the most important for you as a cyclist. It's the air resistance or drag that you feel as you move on your bike. So that is the friction between you and the bike and the air around you. So here are some effects of friction. So on the left we have a container filled with rice and it is being held up with just a pencil that's been pushed into the centre of the rice. We then have these two books that have had their pages interlocked, which means you lay one page from one book, then the other book, one after the other. And there is no glue, yet you will really struggle to pull those books apart. There are some really good YouTube videos where they've lifted very heavy things using old telephone catalogues and this method. So friction is a resistive force that grips objects. It resists the motion of surfaces that are sliding or trying to slide against each other. Let's think about this scenario. When you first push on a cup, it may not move. If you push harder, you increase the force on the cup. When the force of you pushing is larger than the resistive force of friction, the cup will move. When you stop pushing, the cup will stop moving. This is because the surfaces can no longer move past each other. So here are some examples of why friction is useful. So we've got a person walking down the street. Why might friction be useful here? We've got a lit match. How do we light a match? We've got car tyres on a road. And we've also got a pencil. Interestingly, pencils work by friction too. As your pencil rubs against the rough surface of the paper, individual layers of the pencil lead, which is what we call graphite, comes away, and that is what is left behind on your paper. Think about this scenario. A shopper's carrier bag splits on the way home. A melon and a pineapple, which happen to have exactly the same mass, fall out of the bag and roll down the street. The diagram shows the horizontal forces acting on the fruits. In your books, explain why there is a difference in the forces acting on each fruit and what will happen to the motion of the fruits as a result. So, the pineapple has a rougher surface than the melon. This means there is more friction between the pineapple and the ground than the melon and the ground. So friction slows both of the fruits down, but the pineapple slows down at a faster rate because there is a larger frictional force, which can be seen by that 200 newtons. So, is friction good? Without friction, we wouldn't be able to walk, sit in a chair, or drive safely. Everything would keep sliding and falling over. We need friction between our feet and the ground, or we would not be able to stand up. When you are riding a bike and press the brakes, it is friction that slows your bike down, and it's the same way in a car. Is friction bad? If you want to push something heavy, friction makes it harder to move. Friction produces heat, and this can cause heat to build up is not always a good thing, especially inside a car engine. We try to reduce the amount of friction in a car engine by adding oil. If you do the thing where you rub your hands together, you have friction. If you've just put some hand cream on or some soap and do it again, you'll notice your hands don't get as warm, and that's because the soap or hand cream smooths the surface and there is that less of that resistive force. That's what we call a lubricant. Oil is the lubricant in a car engine. That's the end of this lesson. Thank you.